You know, right. The podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, media, entertainment, entrepreneurship, reality TV, of course, and so much more. Nick Durst here, along with the one and only Joe Calabrese. And Joe, getting a little bit back to our roots here today. Obviously, we're going to be doing a little more, doing some sports here. We've done a lot of reality TV recently. I'm sure our guest today is going to cause some more headlines for us and awful announcing, even though he's an excellent announcer, Barrett Sports Media, etc. Uh, the guy we have on with us today, Joe, he's a star. He always has been. But there's something to be said about that You Know I'm Right podcast effect. Right, Joe? Once you have somebody on, they seem to just blow up 2 years later. And you and I don't want to say we're trolls or anything, but in honor of our guest today, we broke out the Knicks apparel.
Yeah, no, I noticed. I did notice
Absolutely.
that.
He noticed that. Oh, yeah, we caught him immediately. Uh, we are so happy to have him back on. The last time we did this, he was, again, Nick, as you were saying, he was basically starting to elevate at that point in his career. And since then, some more NFL broadcasts, college football broadcasts. He hosts Big Ten Saturday night on NBC and Peacock. We got the NBA on Showtime, the Olympic stuff, Team USA. And yes, he's an amazing announcer, despite what awful announcing may say. He's a Sports Emmy Award winner since the last time he's been on the show, too. I don't remember a time where we had an intro that was this long, but it's so well earned, so well deserved. Such a cool guy. Happy to have him back on. And we welcome back Noah Eagle to the show. Noah, after all of that, you finally get to talk. What's up, man?
Yeah, well, I think it's hazard pay for wearing the Knicks gear. You had to give the longest intro of all time, but I respect it. I have to tip my cap to that, guys. It's an honor to be back, and yeah, I owe everything to you. So at this point, the entire career is because of the two of you, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, so Joe, long intro. Imagine what's going to happen when we have Noah back on in 11 years when he's 40. We're going to have to give him longer in the list. But
By that time, he'll have a couple of national championships under his belt. He's definitely going to have an NBA Finals back then, in the future. Then,
well, you know who won't have
yeah.
a national championship under his belt? The Orange.
Oh
Oh, come
no.
on! What are we
I
doing?
wasn't I wasn't gonna go there. He went there. I was gonna be very, very delicate with that situation over there. What's up with
You never know.
Syracuse, man? Is it just because of the conference realignment stuff?
I think that with the ever-changing landscape of college sports, certain coaches and programs react in one way and others react in a different. And this next hire is going to be important for the basketball program at Syracuse. We saw what Fran Brown did in year one in winning 10 games for the football program there, which is something that hadn't been done since I was in school, which I'm saying like that's decades ago. It's 7 years ago, but still, it was a chunk of time. And for the basketball program, it's going to have to be something similar. Someone who's going to inject energy, someone who can fundraise and get that NIL number up, and then who can recruit to the system they want to play. I think that's the important thing. But I see it all the time covering all these other schools. I mean, Indiana was a premier program of college basketball for, it felt like
Yeah.
100 years. And now they're struggling just to make the tournament year after year after
Yeah. We
year.
just got to face the facts. Syracuse and Indiana, they're football schools.
Football schools, come on, guys, come on.
I mean,
Football schools,
there's nothing like the
clearly.
Carrier Dome, though. I mean, it's one of
Well,
the.
it's now it's called. I think that's maybe the first thing is that it's no longer called the Carrier
Oh,
Dome. It's the
really?
JMA Wireless Dome. Which,
Who would know
to
that?
me, once you lost Carrier, you lost a lot of the mystique. But we'll find out what happens.
All right. Well, no, obviously, a lot going on, as Joe mentioned for you. So I'm curious, what's the first app you have to check on your phone every day?
The message app. See who texted me. Usually, it's my
That's
mom
it.
checking on me, so that's going to be important to get back immediately. After that, it's going to be Twitter. I still call it Twitter, but it's still going to
Nice.
be Twitter for me, just to make sure I catch up on whatever news I missed while I was sleeping, which
Mm.
generally is a long time. I sleep for a long time, so when I wake up, stuff's already happened, so I got to make sure I'm up to date.
Night owl for sure with the career path.
Yes.
What time do you wake up? 12 o'clock? You just
No, no. I would say if I'm on the East Coast, I'm at 9. I'll go.
okay.
I'll sleep till 9, but I'm going to bed to your point 1:30 because I'm doing everything at night, whether it's a game at night or I'm finishing work because I got to wait for the rest of the games to finish. So yeah, I'm staying up late and sleeping in.
Now, who reaches out to you more now, mom or dad?
Oh, it truly is 50-50. I'm going to give it 50-50 to the two of them. They're pretty good about the balance of it.
Very, very good. And I don't know, any like judging you on social media, right? You still seem to be in immaculate shape, right? How does that work when you're traveling and you're on the road a lot and you're constantly on the move now as sports broadcasters are now
Sprinting
that
through
you
the airport to
yeah,
stay. Yeah.
through the
Oh
airports,
yeah.
you work multiple seasons, you work multiple sports, right? Do you find time to get to the gym? Do you do push-ups in the hotel room? Like, how does that work?
I wish I could tell you that I was at the level of the dude who did a 5K in the plane bathroom. I don't know if you saw that, but some dude posted a video of him just going in circles in the plane bathroom until he finished a 5K, which, by the way, if I was on that plane and someone took up an hour plus in a bathroom on a plane just to do a 5K, I'd be irate. I mean, I'm someone
Yeah.
who drinks a lot of water. I got to get up, man. I got to get in there. This is not a space for you to just do activities. This is not Step Brothers building bunk beds. You've got to make things happen quick. All right. But I would tell you that it's a non negotiable for me. I think during the season in particular, I'm traveling so much. I need to make sure that my voice is good, that my health is in the right place. And so I need to be feeling my best. And in order to do that, I got to be working out pretty much every day. I need it to happen 6 to 7 days a week. And so for that, it's just whatever I can do to get to a gym, whether it's in the hotel, if I'm at home and if I know I have a flight, my flight's not till 2 or 3 in the afternoon, then when I wake up, I'm going to go. Like it's just, you make it a non negotiable because it's important for the output of the job. And it also is important for my mind. So that's what I do it for more than anything.
Yeah, I remember the last time we interviewed, you had just come back from the hotel gym.
Yeah, I was dripping sweat. I
So
remember.
staying in shape, obviously. Now, I'm curious, walk us through here a typical game day, the whole routine. What time? Obviously, it changes if you're doing Nets versus National and you're flying out, but talk to us just from when you get to the stadium till when you're exiting, whether that's jump on the plane then, are you staying overnight at the town, are you going straight to the airport? Talk to us through a day because a lot of people that aren't wise to the industry think he's showing up at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock tip, game's over to 10, he's home. No, you're probably there for 8, 9, 10 hours.
Yeah, so as you said, there's obviously all the lead up of preparing for the game and putting my charts together and making sure that's everything in its place. And the other thing you said is accurate, is it's certainly different when I'm doing a game for Yes Network on a Nets broadcast versus when I'm doing a game on NBC. If I'm doing a Nets game, like tomorrow is a unique circumstance. I'm doing Nets and Sixers. It's a 1 o'clock tip off from Philly, but I live in New York, so I can go. I don't have to stay the tonight in Philly necessarily. So I'll get picked up and driven from my apartments, hour and a half, 2 hours to get to Xfinity Mobile Arena. So I'll get picked up around 9. I'll do some extra work on the trip there, in the back seat. It's like the Lincoln Lawyer, if anybody watches that. I like to work in the car, make sure I'm up to speed, get everything together. I put together my notes and everything, get there about 3 hours before tip, somewhere in the 10 o'clock, maybe 10, in this case, probably more like 10:30 range. The coaches do press conferences before every game. So when I'm doing a Nets game, I go to the coaches' press conferences to make sure I have notes on what they've said before the game. I've already taken notes on their previous press conferences. Then we're going to do some kind of a production meeting. Then I'm going to get some kind of meal. Then we usually go out 20 minutes before tip off and run through our open. We do a recorded open for Nets games. I always go and say hello to the officials. That's important. Get to know all of them over the course of however many years now, and they're great people, and also can help to explain certain things when maybe there was a controversial call of some kind, and I can ask them about that. So that's helpful. Say hello to anybody else, maybe a staffer, coaches, players, etc. We call the game, and then in that case, tomorrow I do get to go home after the game because it's a 1 o'clock, so the game will be over at like 3:30 ish. And then I'll take the nice 90-minute to 2 hour ride back to New York. And then I got to pack for a 15-day road trip tomorrow night that I'm leaving for on Sunday. Sunday? Yes. So that's going to take a lot of my time to make sure that I have everything laid out, make sure I pick out all the suits that I want to wear for all the games that I'm going to have. And then we leave Sunday and we get on to our NBC game. So our NBC game is on Monday. That's Lakers at Rockets. And it's myself and the czar, Mike Fratello, which is going to be very exciting. And for that game, it's, like I said, different. I'm doing all my work ahead of time. I get to Houston on the day of the game. I'm going to have to go to a FedEx print and go and print out my charts, write down everything else that I want to write down that I haven't typed out. I have my full charts, which is a folder. Then I have a separate folder of handwritten notes. I think I actually have some here, so I could show you what it looks like. So I have, this was from, let's see, this was from the game the other day that I just did. This was the Oklahoma City Denver game, which Shea hit the game winner at. And so this is all the printed stuff. At the bottom here, I have quotes from the coaches and players that I might want to use. So that's the Denver side. And you see at the bottom right of the chart, I have the officials and a little bio on all of them. I also put on the top of the chart every way to say a made basket, just in case I get a brain fart of some kind. I very rarely actually have to use it. And then here's my handwritten notes on the inside on like everything about the teams. And then what we do for a national broadcast is, instead of the press conferences, the coaches come directly to our green room and we get to meet with them. And so I end up getting a full page worth from each coach on full notes on everything. We do 15 minutes with each coach. The NBA coaches are incredibly gracious with their time and really with their access. They're unbelievable giving us information. And so that's really the big thing. We have our production meeting before that. We go and rehearse our open. Open is live on NBC or Peacock. Do the game for a while. Then we need to do a post-game hit after the game. And then I'm on the road and it's too late to get out. So I have to go back to the hotel, and normally I'm off to wherever my next game is. So in this case, I'm off to the NCAA tournament. From there, I'll be going to Greenville, South Carolina. From there, I go to Miami to do Spurs Heat. Then I meet the Nets out west. I go meet them in San Francisco to do Nets Warriors, then Nets Lakers. Then I go from LA to Denver to do another Nuggets game. And then I go back to LA to do a Clipper game. And then I get to go home. And so that's where it all starts stacking up on each other. You just got to make sure that you stay ahead of it a little bit and keep planning ahead. And so time management is crucial.
All right, so all your notes and your roster and sheets and the folders, do you save them? I know we have had Kenny Albert
Yes.
on, he had thousands. Because I think
Yeah.
at some point you could turn that into a book down the road. You know, my
Sure.
top games.
I don't consider myself a hoarder, but when I look at how many charts I still have, I'm starting to question whether or not that's the case. When I moved from LA to New York, I got rid of a lot. I think I kept most of the football ones I had done just because I knew I might have those teams again. Pretty much all the NBA ones I had done at that point, which were all my Clipper ones,
Yeah.
were either given to people, like some of my friends wanted them to keep, or thrown out. I think I kept a couple like special games that I felt like I wanted to just have just in case, whatever. But like you see, I have these bookshelves behind me. They have little drawers on the bottom of them. They are completely stock full. And then I have another extra storage cabinet in here that has just complete football and basketball charts. And then I've got a closet that has even more. At some point, I'm going to run out of space. And so it's going to happen where I'm going to have to throw some out or do something. My dad had built a rule, I think my mom forced my dad to build a rule, which was after 3 or 4 years, it might be like 4 seasons old. If it's 4 seasons old, it's done. You can keep up to four, because the key in this is you want to keep the recent ones, because if you had notes from last year, you can use that as reference to write down
Right.
something that maybe you didn't find this year. And so I've had that happen a lot, especially during football. The basketball ones they are what they are, but this right here, the coaches meetings, that's really what I need to keep, because I need to be able to look back and say, what did he say about this player? Or like next year, for example, let's say that I'm just going to just take a random example on here. Let's say this is never going to happen, or actually this could happen. Let's say AJ Mitchell leaves the Oklahoma City Thunder because they're like, we can't pay him. Well, Mark Daignault now has really good stuff about AJ Mitchell right here. So now for his next team, it's a great starting point for me to have his background and what they said about his previous stop and what he meant to his previous team. So I got to keep that. That's important.
So how much more time and effort has have to be put into doing a college football chart versus
Oh,
basketball? Because you're 50 something, 60 something players, and
more.
they're changing every week as far as who's on the roster. If you
Yeah, more. It's like 100 players for a college football roster. It's way harder than doing an NFL game, as far as I'm concerned, just in terms of preparing for it. But
yeah.
it takes a long time, and a lot of it is then the handwritten stuff for me. It's all the extra notes. The bio stuff is what it is. The handwritten stuff is really where you spend the most time on the additional layers that you're trying to get. And with those, we meet with the players and the coaches in the week leading up to the game because everyone only plays once a week. And so I type out all of those notes. And if I've had a team 4 times in a season, which has happened, those notes where I've had one team 4 times and one team the second time, and now it's 6 meetings worth or whatever it is of notes, they could be 20 pages long typed up. And so now it's about how do you take those 20 pages and highlight what's most important to now utilize that you haven't used yet in your previous broadcasts. That's the challenge. It's a fun challenge, though. I really love it. And it's a blast. And you know what? I'm really lucky in getting to work with Todd Blackledge on college football. He's so good at it. He's so good at breaking things down and seeing things before they happen. And he's so rock solid that no matter what I do, I know that he'll be there to either clean it up or add to it. And so for me, it allows me to be very free.
So you make an interesting point that a lot of people who are not in the broadcasting industry would probably be surprised about this, but it's definitely easier to broadcast the pros than college because you're more
Yes.
familiar with the players, right? And the college, it's like even now with the NCAA tournament, you probably got to do a lot of extra time preparing for all these random guys who you don't know. And year to year, you can't be like, oh, I called this team last year. Well, now it's probably a 75% a new roster the next season.
If not more, it might be 85% new. It is rare that you get two legitimate contributors to a team that were on the team the previous year. Now, there are exceptions. You know, Duke obviously has returned a ton. Michigan actually returned, I think, 4 rotation pieces. But the problem became like Michigan's a good example of, okay, LJ Kaysen, who's now injured for the rest of the year, but we're using him. Namari Burnett, Will Cheddar, and I feel like there's one more I'm forgetting that was on their roster last year that's back. But either way, those 3 at minimum. There's definitely one more, though. Either way. So those guys are all back, but their most impactful players now are Elliot Cadeau, who was at North Carolina, Adai Mara, who was at UCLA, Axel Lendenborg, who was at UAB, I'm pretty sure, and Merez Johnson, who was at Illinois. So all 4 of their 4 most impactful players were on a different team a year ago. And then Trey McKinney comes off the bench and he's a freshman. So your point, I had Michigan a ton last year, but Danny Wolf is gone. Vlad Golden is gone. Trey Donaldson is gone. Oh, I remember who the last one. Roddy Gale's still there. So that's helped. But my point is, even with 4 guys, the majority of their impact is now all new players. So that does require more thought and effort and whatnot. For college football, it's like that on steroids, obviously. There's just so many more guys. There's so much movement now. It's hard to keep track of where everybody ends up and lands. And so you get really excited when you see a team. Even Indiana was a great example this year. Mendoza's new, obviously, but a lot of their team returned from last year. Surratt and Cooper were there. And the running backs, some were there, like Black was there, but Hemby came from Maryland, who we had seen. Their offensive line mostly is back, but Coogan comes from Notre Dame, who we had a ton of. Their defense, D'Angelo Pons and Kamara and Fisher were all the key pieces a year ago, and so they're back. So you see a team like that, you get overly excited. And so that was the case for us this year. But there are so many other teams that it's like starting from scratch. And the other reason it's more challenging than doing the pros is even if you've never seen a rookie in the NBA or the NFL, there is an abundance of information out there about said rookie versus a freshman in college. There is very little, unless they are a clear-cut 5-star recruit, Cam Boozer going straight to the NBA guaranteed. There's very little information about these guys. And so that's where the challenge of how it just takes longer to dig deeper to find stuff versus how readily everything is available on a pro.
So with the portal stuff and a lot of player movement, it's had to make your job a little more diligent do a lot of more research beforehand. You've been heavily ingrained in the college sports scene, right, for a really long time. You kind of seen the initial stages here these last few years. What do you like and dislike about it at the moment, based on how it's affected your work and just talking to other peers and other people who've been doing this for longer, who've had an eye on it a little bit longer than you have?
Well, the one thing I really do actually like, and I'll go to the Indiana football example again, is how quickly you can turn something around. Like, I think fans always will have hope now because Indiana, Kurt Signetti, they made the right hire. Year one, they win 11 games, and year two, they go undefeated and win a national championship. Like that wouldn't have been possible before the way that he did it. He would have had success, but the level of, hey, we can go and get players that are perfect for our system because of NIL and the transfer portal. I do think that that's a good thing. And it does provide fan bases with a level of hope that they probably didn't have before. So I think that's a big pro. Obviously, the challenge is in terms of me, is what we talked about of guys being in different places than they were a year ago, and coaches talking about how they don't have competitive NIL and talking about, whatever, it's easy excuses and whatnot. So I think that's a challenge, but more than anything, it creates intrigue. I think that it will be regulated eventually. Right now, it's still kind of the Wild West and how NIL has formed and the transfer portal is. They slightly fixed it, but it still needs to be, to me, completely after the season for college football. Basketball, it's fine, still has some issues, but we're getting there. I think it's still such an early stage, even though we've been a couple of years in now. The NIL side of it, I think it's going to get closer and closer to like a salary cap of some kind. It's just not going to be unlimited spending, which is where we're at this point. And then there's going to be contracts, I think, eventually. And that's probably where we need to get to, full commitments from kids so that they can't just take the big money for a year and then leave. It's got to be, hey, you're going to take big money. You're going to commit to 2 years. You're going to commit to saying, if I'm not going to go pro, I'm going to stay here for 3 years, whatever it might be. I just think eventually it's going to mirror more and more of what the pro stuff looks like, the pro model looks like. And that's okay. Like, we're already into it. These guys are essentially already professionals with the way that they're being paid and the way that they're being treated. And so you have to just go full in on it. Now, you can't lose the student aspect of it as well. I think that's the biggest jurisdiction between the two. Otherwise, what are we doing here? Otherwise, they should just go play professional wherever they want. But if you're going to pay them and treat them as employees, they still need to be almost student employees. Like, instead of student athletes, they're student employees. And I think that's the difference.
So to optimize your time, I mean, why didn't you drive down to Philly on your Harley?
Yeah, no,
You know,
not
I
a
was
Harley guy.
I was
Just
there.
wanted to make sure. Just wanted to make sure that I always have a little orange on me. Shout out to the Cuse, and we go full circle with it.
Just like us. You know, I was there
Sure.
last week. I drove down. Unfortunately, that Spurs and 76ers game that was
Yeah.
broadcast nationally on NBC wasn't really the best game to watch just because of circumstance. But you know, you joined the NBA on NBC and you did all that stuff, right?
Joe, you're burying
Uh,
the lead here. Joe was on the court post game, and your colleagues were like, "Get the hell away, get out of here." He was trying to shoot a basket while they were in the live shot post
Oh,
you
game.
had
you were there when Vince and Tracy were putting some shots up.
no, not that. It was Fratello was there.
Oh, it was the throwback game. You're
It was
The
right.
the
throwback
throwback game.
game.
Isaiah was on
I
the
forgot about it.
and the
Yeah,
Yes.
crew, and who else was
Joe
there?
on the court post game. Unbelievable, shooting baskets.
Hey, man, did you make one?
I did, of course.
All right, that's
I
good.
got
Then we're
mine
good.
in. Yeah, I
Then
got
we're good.
myself in. Yeah. So you left the Clippers a couple years ago, right? You joined the Yes Network with your father. Those are one of those opportunities that we talked about at the top. All those opportunities that you've had since you last were on the show. Now, Yes Network, broadcasting the Nets, right? You've already gotten your feet wet with the Clippers stuff, but there's a big block at the Yes Network. Your father, right? So when you came to the net when you went to the Yes Network, was your father like, you know what? You know, I think you got a lot of talent. I think you're looking really good. You know, unfortunately, there's no real, lead available openings for you right now. You know, you're gonna have to learn the ropes. Was he busting your chops a little bit, or was, there? good synergy there, and he was kind of trying to get you in on the broadcast as much as he could.
Yeah, yeah, I would tell you the latter. I would also tell you that I signed on and Yes Network basically said we're going to take you for however many games you have available. This was not a hey, you only get X amount of games type of
Yeah.
deal. Uh all of us, it's a very unique, and I want to shout out Yes Network because this is a very unique thing. This is majority of regional sports networks would not do it this way, where they have multiple voices for the Nets games because a lot of the voices also do national work. And so my dad and Ryan Rucco and myself, and then Sarah Kustok and Vince Carter and Richard Jefferson for years, like all of us are then also doing, whether it's for me and NBC, my dad before with TNT, now with Amazon Prime, Ryan with ESPN, Sarah's doing a variety of things with Fox and with TNT and CBS, and she's all over the place. Vince is with NBC, RJ's at ESPN. Like all these people then have other avenues, whether it's in the NBA or in other places. And so it's amazing that Yes Network is cool with that because that is just not common around the majority. And you guys have the Knicks jerseys on, like Mike Breen obviously is the same way. It's not common to see. There's only a few places. Nets, Knicks, the Bulls with Adam Amin and Mark Jones in Sacramento. Other than that, there's just not that many more local announcers that get to then also do national gigs. And so for them, it was, for me, I should say, it was really a dream because I grew up such a huge fan of the Nets, like a one of those crazy fans, one of those fans that was there for 15 to 20 home games when they went 12 and 70. I was that kid. And so for me, it was a chance to be involved with a team that I grew up just absolutely loving and would do anything for. A chance to be around the people that I grew up with, whether it's Aaron Harris from the PR side or Frank DeGrace, who was producing the Nets for many years and now is with us at NBC, and so on and so forth. And then on top of it, you mentioned it, it's a chance for me to get more NBA reps, which for me, I think was important, especially when I first got there. I had done the 4 years of doing the Clippers on radio, but I needed to do more on TV until felt like I was ready to really then spread my wings, pun intended. I wanted to continue to work that muscle of television NBA, and I love the NBA. So even if the game's going to be lopsided or it's going to be incredibly close in overtime and there's going to be a buzzer beater, I didn't care. I just wanted to be there because I love the sport. I would do anything to be sitting courtside where I get to for these games, and I wouldn't change a thing about it. So yeah, it's been awesome to be a part of it. The team has definitely gone through their transition period, as they've talked about this year, and are looking forward to what the future brings. But just getting to be a small part of it in general for a broadcast that has been so highly touted and thought of for so long is pretty incredible. And, I didn't even mention Chris Carino and Tim Capstraw. And Chris Carino just went into the Basketball Hall of Fame. And Tim Capstraw has set an Ironman streak that is probably untouchable for most games called, and is just one of the great human beings that I get to now call somebody I've worked with as well for several games. And we have a blast. I've known Tim since I was a kid. I've known Chris since I was a kid. And so that's been cool for me too.
What I will say about the Barclays Center is that the Emirates Club is
Pretty
amazing.
legit.
I mean, we got lucky enough to cover Liberty game and we got to go and eat in the club. I mean, that was pretty spectacular.
Oh, you guys get some pasta there?
I got everything. Well, Joe was like, "Yeah, I'm not too hungry." I'm like, "Come on, Joe. Like, let's eat."
That's what Nick does. He goes into the buffets, he goes into the special suites and the clubs, loads up on all the food that he can because he's a
Nice.
foodie. That's what he
Love that.
does.
Love that.
Yeah, but how often, as you're the average Joe, but as average Joes, how often are we going to be able to have access to the Emirates Club? Those are some pricey tickets, Joe. So we had to take advantage of the times we were in there.
Yes, we got to take advantage of it. No, we got to go to a Knicks and a Nets game at some point.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say, I know it's difficult with your schedule, right? But you got
A
to
little
take some
bit.
personal fun days every now and then.
Yeah. Now, when's the last time you attended a sporting event, not working?
I actually went to a Knicks game last year,
Wow.
but it was like pseudo for work, but I wasn't working, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I wasn't entirely off.
Researching.
But so I was there for Knicks Mavs. Najee Marshall had like 40 points, but the Knicks won.
Right.
But that I can't remember another sporting event I went to. I went to the Super Bowl in 2023 as a fan. But then I worked in 24 and I worked this year. So yeah, it's been a while, guys. I can't give you. It's definitely not a long list.
Well, it looks like we're gonna have to go and have some fun at some point, hopefully in the Emirates Club.
There you go.
That'd be really, really great. Uh, Describe very quickly the differences between radio and TV,
Mm,
because for some people, I think there's a curve. Nick likes to ask this question, and I mean, I think based on the trajectory here of the last couple of years, I think you are a natural fit. The crossover to TV was very seamless for you. It's not necessarily the case for some others, right? But talk about just like some key differences outside of the sheets and like the prep stuff.
yeah, so the preparation stuff is mostly going to be the same. I actually think you probably need a little bit more for TV. I would prepare it anyway, but you use more on TV than you would on radio because you don't have time. When you're calling a radio game, and I just did this on this past Saturday, I did Duke, North Carolina on radio, which was a blast at Cameron Indoor. I mean, that's one of those like bucket list type of events you get to go to and you could feel it. And it was incredible. But I put all my charts together and normally, I could show you again on this NBA one that I just did. I put like in the previous games, I then also put like recent trends. So I'll give you like Jamal Murray, for example. His previous game, 12 points, 3 assists, 18 minutes before he got hurt. Then 15 double doubles, 17 games with 30 or more points. He's 23 of 44 from three over his last 5 games, and he has played in 18 straight after missing 2. Right. So those are all in there. And when I'm doing radio, there's pretty much no time. Maybe I could get one of those things in versus when I'm doing TV, I probably used all of those things. And now there's a ton of other stuff that I won't even come close to getting to. I still probably only use 25 to 30% of what I prepare on TV, but the number on radio is probably closer to 5 to 10% because my job on radio is to make sure that whoever's listening has a full picture of what's happening. They don't care if you're driving in the car and you just want to know what the time and score is and where the ball is. You don't really care that I'm going to just pull a different random fact from this game. You don't really care that Isaiah Joe is 4 of 21 from three over his last 3 games. If there's been 2 possessions that have gone by since I said that on the radio, because you can't see it. And so for me on the radio, you've got to be much more precise, much more descriptive. I got to say it's a right wing 3, far side corner, short corner, elbow, block, paint, restricted area, dotted line, timeline, left to right, right to left. All of that stuff matters. If I said any of that stuff on TV, whoever's at home would be like, what's wrong with this guy? Why is he talking so much? And so it's just the radio is much more of a full, I don't want to say monologue, but something similar to that. And TV, it's captions. I'm just doing the captions, and I want to make sure that I'm making sure that my analyst is shining. That's always my biggest goal is, are we as a team collectively shining? Versus when I was doing radio on the Clipper side, I was doing the games by myself. My only concern was if somebody is listening and they can't see a single thing, are they getting what they need to get? If the answer is yes, I was doing my job.
Great stuff. Very good stuff. Now let's go to NBC because you joined NBC in 2023, I believe it was. So you've been there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Once you got there, it was very obvious to see what they were trying to do, and that includes the college football stuff, the basketball stuff. Again, they took back the NBA, and I think from that point on, they've done a really great job with it. But had the opportunity to do some basketball broadcasting, some Olympic stuff. Got to work
Yeah.
with the amazing Dwayne Wade, and you guys have a tremendous relationship, partnership, great chemistry when you guys are on the broadcast. It's palpable off the TV screen. But who helped facilitate that? Who got you into the door at NBC Sports, and what was that like at the very beginning?
Yeah. So what I tell a lot of people that are getting into this, and really this is just kind of, I think, work and life in general. The hardest job to get is the first one. It's the hardest domino to fall. But once that first domino falls, then you become hireable. This is what my dad told me as I was graduating college. He said, once you get that first job, somebody else took a chance. Now it's not as much a risk. And with each bigger job that you get, the risk becomes less and less and less. And so I obviously got incredibly fortunate when I graduated college that the Clippers had an opening. I interviewed for the TV job, didn't get that, take the radio job. So I'm in this incredible position where I'm doing radio in LA. I end up doing Tennis Channel in LA. And then while I'm out there, I have an agent, and my agent continued to get me meetings with a variety of people. So I actually had a meeting with a woman at NBC my first year doing the Clippers. It was November, maybe end of November of 2019. So the 2020 Olympics were coming up. None of us knew that COVID would be happening, obviously. So we all just expected the 2020 Olympics. And they were about to start this new sport, 3x3 basketball is what it's called. It's 3-on-3 basketball, but it's called 3x3. And it had been popularized by FIBA. There were tournaments all around the world. It was going to be this exciting thing. So I went to meet this woman in the West Hollywood area. For anyone who knows LA, I lived in Playa Vista. That is not necessarily an easy drive, especially during rush hour, which is all the time.
There's no easy drive in LA either.
It's brutal. It's brutal. So on top of that, whatever I had eaten the night before was not sitting well with me. And I had woken up in the middle of the night. I was clearly food poisoned, clearly had food poisoning. And so I'm like, well, what am I going to do here? I can either try to call and reschedule this or cancel it, or I could see if I can tough it out. And I decided to go and tough it out. I mean, I was stopping on the side of the road, I think 2 or 3 times on the way, thinking like, okay, I'm going to get it out of my system. I'm going to be good. And I go to the meeting, and the first like 15 to 20 minutes go well. I'm doing well. Everything's good. Now I feel something coming, and I'm like, would you excuse me? I just have to go to the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom, but I can't perform. I can't get anything out. It's just not happening. And so I go back out there, and now I'm sweating. I look like the Key and Peele where she finds his internet history. Like I was dripping sweat. I looked like the first podcast appearance with you guys post gym, where I am just drenched. And she's like, "Are you okay?" And we're talking like 5 more minutes. I go, "Will you excuse me for a second? I had to go back to a bathroom." So I'm thinking like, and so I finally come back out. She's like, "Hey, what's going on?" I said, I had food poisoning. She goes, "Oh my God, you should have told me. I have I have this weak stomach. I get this all the time. Like, totally understand." And so I tell this story because it was my first chance at talking to anyone from NBC. And because I'd put the effort in, and the first 20 minutes were good enough that I showcased my personality enough that she really, it left an impression. It left this like unbelievable impression that I would make the effort. She was checking on me later that night, texting me to make sure I was okay. And so obviously COVID happened, so they don't have the Olympics. But then in 2021, when they do the Olympics a year later, I got to do the 3x3. And I did it remote from Stamford, Connecticut. And then when the 3x3 was done, I did a handful of 5-on-5 games with Fran Fraschilla and Knicks legend Monica McNutt. And we had a great time, and it went well. And so that was that. And I went back to my other stuff, doing the Clippers. And then the next year after that, I did a little college football. And then the next year after that, Fox, who I'd been doing college basketball with for a good 2 years or so, offered me the full season's worth of college football. And when I started that, Sam Flood, who's in charge of NBC Sports, or he's one of the head honchos, so to speak, at NBC Sports, he reached out to my agent and said, "Hey, we would love to meet with Noah and just get to know him." And he flew out to LA. He was going to be out there anyway for a football game at SoFi. But we met the day before and got breakfast. And basically by the end of the breakfast, he was like, "Look, we want to bring you over here. We've got this Big Ten package coming, and there's going to be some other stuff." It was basically, when I signed on, it was Big Ten football, Big Ten basketball, USFL, which they lost the rights to before I even got there, and some Olympic assignment. That was all that was on my contract. And so I got there and did the Big Ten season. We ended up doing an NFL regular season game on NBC. We ended up doing the wild card game between the Browns and the Texans on NBC. Then I do all the Big Ten season, and then I at first they called me and said, "Hey, we want to send you to Paris." I was like, "That's amazing for the Olympics." They said, "We want you to do diving," and I was like, "Great, sounds good." I know basically about Triple Lindy from Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. That was it. They were like, "Yeah, well, we'll make sure you have all these research packets and you'll learn." I'm like, "Cool." And then a week later, they called me back and they're like, "Hey, so Joel Embiid, Kevin Durant, LeBron, all committed. So do you want to just do basketball instead?" And I was like, I was really looking forward to diving. I don't know what, but sure. I was like, yeah, let's do that. So I got to do basketball, men's and women's, US and others. And that was obviously incredible. Like you mentioned with D Wade was great. We had a blast. The stuff that we got to call and the games we get to say we did was pretty unbelievable. And then everything kind of snowballed from there. I got really fortunate to be in a position at a place that, as you mentioned, gets the NBA and is willing now to go and try to get different stuff. And they bring in MLB now, which is not something that I'll necessarily do, but just good to know that I'm at a place that is really prioritizing sports and live programming, which for what I do is obviously important.
What other sports would you like to broadcast? Because the Olympics is a huge variety, and obviously you just mentioned that they had a working idea for you that ultimately didn't happen. But is there
Yeah.
anything off the top of your head? You've done football, basketball, right? Tennis. What are you particularly interested in if the opportunity presented itself, you would do?
I think the competition where people slap each other as hard as possible, whatever the slap fighting is called. No, I'm cool with anything. I think the best thing in my career is that I've just, especially early, I just said yes to a lot of stuff. So I've done pickleball when I was in college. I did field hockey and lacrosse and soccer and anything that was offered. And so I feel like I've gotten a chance to do a lot of stuff. I got to do Nickelodeon, NFL games. Then we did Nickelodeon golf event. And so I've been fortunate. I did a game show when I was in college. That'd be pretty cool if I could do a new one of that at the professional level. But I got to host a docu-series this year. So I've had such variety that whatever keeps coming my way, I'm essentially just going to keep saying yes to and figuring it out as we go. But I don't have one thing that I'm saying I got to do it this way or I got to do that. But darts would be pretty wild with Luke the Nuke Littler.
How about a video game? Would you want to be the
Oh yeah,
broadcast voice for a video game? It's a lot
that'd
of
be pretty
work, I heard,
cool.
though.
A little 2K action. That'd
I
be
was
pretty
gonna say,
cool.
bring back the old NBA on Showtime games like they're on N64,
Yeah.
and we'll do No Eagle, right?
What
Let's
if
see
we
what.
just did like a new NBA Jam and it's just my voice saying "Boom Shaka"?
My
That'd
God.
be
That's
pretty cool.
right.
Or when they make the
He's heating up.
when they make the college basketball game, they could have them do that.
Oh,
So
I see
yeah.
where you're at.
Oh, yeah. Well, you mentioned the Nickelodeon stuff. So how did that come to be? Obviously, how it had to work out where Paramount, they had the whole merger, so then they get the rights for CBS. So what was your thoughts when you got approached with that?
Yeah, so the first year we did it was January of 2021. So I think it was probably around maybe early September of 2020. So the NBA season shut down. Actually, it was 6 years ago, like 2 or 3 days ago, 2 days ago, I think. So 6 years ago, the NBA shuts down for COVID. There's 3 months that go by before NBA basketball even thinks about coming back. So April, May, June, and then it was July when they started building out the bubble. And they do the bubbles. I think the first seeding or the first exhibition games were the end of July. So I was living in LA. I flew a couple days, maybe a week after the NBA season shut down. I flew back to New York and New Jersey at the time, where my parents were and my sister was. And I was like, I'm just going to go with them. And I'd rather just quarantine with them than sitting alone in a 1 bedroom apartment in LA with nobody around. So I flew back. I spent the next 2 months waiting, essentially. I didn't book a return flight. I just waited out and waited to see what was going to happen. 2 months went by, and then tennis was starting back up. And Tennis Channel asked if I would come and do stuff. I was like, yeah. So flew back to LA in June, first week of June or so, and started with tennis stuff. And then the bubble happened. The Clippers go to the second round of the playoffs. They lose in game 7 to the Denver Nuggets. So season's over. They blew a 3-1 lead. I'm pretty devastated. However, Tennis Channel had also asked me, would you be willing to essentially be on standby if the Clippers don't make it past the second round? You can come and do Roland Garros, the French Open, with us. And I was like, well, that'd be pretty awesome. So the reason I bring that up is I vividly remember the season ending. I had a flight, I think 4 days later to Paris. Like it was basically, I had no time to just sit in sadness. I was like, cool, I get to go and call tennis at Roland Garros. That's amazing. So the day of my flight, which was a night flight from LA to Paris, the day of that flight, I had a Zoom call with a woman from Nickelodeon, and my agent called and said, "Hey, look, they're doing this new thing, it's Nickelodeon, NFL, and they think you'd be perfect for it." And so I was like, "Great." That's all my agent said is they think you'd be perfect for it. So in my head, I was the only person they were talking to, and he basically alluded like, "Hey, they just want this is more of a formality than anything. They just want to make sure that they like you, but you're good." So I just went in there with like house money, thinking, cool, this is all good. Well, turns out that I was one of three people that they spoke to. And in the meeting, the woman asked, this is not a requirement, but did you watch Nickelodeon growing up? And I said, did I watch Nickelodeon growing up? And then I started doing impressions of all the characters. I was like, his mayonnaise an instrument? I start going through doing Patrick. I was doing Drake and Josh quotes. I was doing Rugrats. I was doing Rocket Power. I was going through from era to era, basically.
Yeah, I was gonna say we have a certified Nickelodeon ball knower over here, but
Sure.
that's not to be a surprise.
No. Necessary. It was necessary at my time. So I do all of that stuff. They love it. And so they were like, yeah, a couple weeks later, they said, yep, you're going to do the game. It's a wild card game, TBD, obviously, of who's playing. And so we end up doing Saints, Bears, Bears at Saints. It was Drew Brees' last playoff win of his career. It was a week or two after Alvin Kamara ran for whatever it was, 6 or 7 touchdowns. It won me my fantasy league. So that was pretty cool. But so I go and do the game. It's myself, Nate Burleson, Gabby Nevaeh Green, who's at the time 14 or 15 years old and had never been to a football game. And we had Lex Lumpkin the first year as our sideline reporter, who was also about 14. And it was a blast. We just had a blast. Nate and I agreed before the game. This is not something I normally do. He said, let's just not look at our phones and not be influenced by whatever people are saying. I go, cool. We do the game. It goes incredibly well. It was incredibly well received, like shockingly well received that first year. Mitch Trubisky won the Nickelodeon Valuable Player because of the PMT guys really putting out that word to get him an MVP trophy. So he won it. And we went our separate ways and we're like, yeah, well, that was fun. Well, it went so well that they wanted to do it again the next year. So the next year we had Niners at Cowboys when Dak Prescott slid down and ran out of time. One of the great games I've been to and great atmospheres and everything. And we had young Dylan that year as our sideline reporter, who is at the time the most confident 13-year-old I've ever met in my life. And he backs it up. He's got quite the following. So we did that year too. And then we did the golf thing with myself, Gabby, and young Dylan, which was a lot of fun. And then the next year we did, so that would have been year 3. Which one did we do? Oh, we did Christmas. This was Broncos at Rams. Russell Wilson getting flamed by Patrick Starr saying, that's not what he wanted to cook. So that was that year. And then the following year, we did Christmas, which was Chiefs, Raiders. The Raiders end up crushing them. And then we did the Super Bowl that year, which was myself, Nate, and SpongeBob and Patrick doing the game from first quarter all the way through overtime. And that was unbelievable. Like me as my childhood self, recognizing that I got to hang out with SpongeBob and Patrick was pretty awesome.
Big time. Incredible stuff. So I'm curious, what is tougher for you to dress for? A Nickelodeon broadcast or a traditional broadcast where you're in your suit and tie?
Well, I would say it's the traditional because I choose my outfits on the traditional. The Nickelodeon ones, they had stylists
for you.
Oh, I was treated like royalty. It was great. They came to my apartment with like 20 outfit ideas. had me try stuff on. It was great. It was like a full fashion show. So
Did
that
you
was
get
easy.
did you get slimed?
I did get slimed. I have a slow-mo video of me getting slimed. That did happen. Yes.
Very nice. How many suits do you have in the rotation?
Too many probably. I also just got a few more. I think I might be up to 25, maybe more.
From what I heard,
But
NBC's pretty good with that stuff though. They'll help you with the dry cleaning or pressing and whatnot.
listen, I have no complaints on what NBC has done. I would tell you that the variety of suits is necessary because you
Yeah.
go through an entire season. And I just look back at what I did this year. I went straight from football starting August into the overlap with NBA, into NFL playoff stuff, into we had NFL games. I had two NFL games in 3 days this year, the Christmas game and then a game on the 27th. So those are important to get those outfits right. You got a lot of people watching, doing the Super Bowl, doing all 3 days of All-Star weekend. Like you start recognizing that if you're going to be on a big enough platform, you can't repeat them that much because you get seen a lot. And so you got to
Yeah.
make sure that you got enough variety. So it takes up the problem for me is it takes up so much closet space that it leaves very little for everything else.
Makes sense. That's what you wear most of the time anyway, though. So warranted to take up the space. So give me a either a coach or a player, past or present, for football and basketball that you'd love to call a game with at some point as the analyst.
Okay, let's start basketball. I would say Steph Curry would be that guy. I just think Steph would be really good at it. I think he's got a good way about him, good sense of humor, and obviously he's a highly intelligent player. So he sees the game at a ridiculously high level. So I think he probably is high up there. Football, I feel like calling a game with Kurt Signetti would be hilarious. That would be a lot of fun. I just think that his filter would be low, which is usually a good thing. But I would say Mike Tomlin is high on that. He's just, he'd be really, really good at it too. McVay, everybody is curious about. I've never met with McVay, but I think what actually would be amazing is calling a game with Jim and John Harbaugh
Mm.
because like having the two of them together and hearing all of their stuff. I've met with both of them. I really enjoy both of them. I've worked with their brother-in-law, Tom Crean. So working with them to complete kind of the family would be pretty fun. I'm trying to think of a good football player. I do every year. I help out with the NFL's broadcast boot camp. So they invite current or recently retired players to learn the basics of broadcasting. And so the final day is they get to run through a little bit of everything. And so they get to call basically a quarter of a game with me or some other broadcasters that they have. They do TV, they do radio, then they do a podcasting segment, they do a studio segment. So they have all this set up. It's really well done.
Awesome.
And so I've gotten to do a lot of it with a lot of players, and there have been some that have been just really fun. The most impressive one is actually someone that hopefully I'll get to see at training camp this year is Alec Ingold. Was unbelievably impressive, just incredibly organized, very intelligent, and really smooth. But then we've had some fun ones like Mark Ingram before he started doing the Fox stuff, did the boot camp, and I had a blast with. He was a great personality. Stevie Johnson, the former Bills receiver, was really fun. And so you start to then add up a lot of those experiences as well. But I feel like there'd probably be like a really interesting player to do a game with, but I would have to think on it.
Fair enough. So Noah, you are pretty good in your career as far as staying out of the messy waters and some controversy, but there was some slight controversy with you recently. So I want to let you clear the air on this. And maybe you know where I'm going, maybe you don't. But Michael K took some offense to your remarks that apparently you said if you were his age, you wouldn't want to be broadcasting anymore. You couldn't imagine broadcasting anymore. So recently he took offense to that and brought that up again. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think that first of all, the headline that went out there was not entirely properly quoted to me. If you actually go back and listen to the clip of what I said, that's not how it was quoted in the headline. So let's start there, which it made it seem like I was taking a shot at Al Michaels. That would never be the case. I have nothing but immense respect for the career that Al Michaels has put together and continues to put together. So I think that was the first part of it. But I just was talking about for me and what
Yeah.
I know for myself. I have no issues with the people that do it. And again, I think that's where it was probably misconstrued of me taking a shot at those. I just know for me, the question was asked directly to me of how I envision my own career going long term. And I just envision it ending at a certain time. Now,
Mhm.
I could get to that time and that could completely change, but I just know for myself and how I see kind of everything going, that's not how at this point in my career I envision it going. But again, I understand that this is a career that we all dream of. I don't take that lightly. I certainly don't take that for granted. And if I could have the career that Michael Kay has had, I would sign up for that in an instant. If I could have the career that Al Michaels has, half the career that he's had, I sign up for that in an instant. And the list goes on. Marv Albert, and now even the guys who, whether it's a Mike Tirico or my dad, or like all of those guys, you sign up for that in an instant. So this is certainly not anything to say, hey, they're doing it wrong. It was, the question was posed directly to me of how do you envision, or what's your future looking like? And that was how I answered, was this is how I envision my future. But it certainly was not anything as a slight to any of those Hall of Famers, because there's a reason that they are listed as such. And I have immense respect for Michael Kay, for Al Michaels, and for everybody in between.
Great answer. We'll send that off to Awful Announcing and Barrett Sports Media. That way we can get the air cleared and everything will be nice and clean. Noah, this has been really, really great. We thank you for joining the two-time guest club, which is now starting to grow a little bit, but you're still one of the OGs. So we really, really appreciate that. So my last question, very, very interesting. I feel like we're going to try to keep you on your toes with this one, right? I don't know if
All
you've ever
right.
been asked this in a podcast interview, so hopefully this is the first time. I tend to be an astrology dude, right? Which isn't totally common, right? So I have to ask you, what is your sign? You,
Sagittarius.
another Sagittarius, Nick. I was gonna say the last interview we did
Does
was
that
with the
does that line
Sagittarius.
up for Noah? The Sagittarius line up for Noah?
Yeah, I was gonna say. So I asked a question in the last guest that we had. Uh, there's a difference between months, when it comes to each sign. So
Sure.
November Sagittariuses are different than December Sagittariuses. My guess, I don't know your birthday. My guess is that you're a December Sagittarius. Is that true?
Correct.
There you go.
Correct.
See, I know. I don't know when your birthday is. The last one we had, her birthday was 12/12, which was my friend's birthday. So that's the reason why I remember that.
I'm
Uh,
12/11, so whoever it
Wow.
is must be pretty
wow.
awesome.
How about that?
You guys find that your next guest has to be 12/10.
Yeah,
That's right.
that'd be something.
Anyway, the December portion is important because the numerical component to your birthday is that you were born in a December, which is a 12-month, breaks down to three, and three tends to be good communication wise, right? So gifted communicators, very funny. Nat in Sagittarius, people are just naturally free flowing and they love absorbing information. They love doing all that research kind of stuff. So when you showed us the charts before, that's very Sagittarian energy in full throttle. So
All right,
Big for the brand, baby. Big for the brand.
we got two guest options for 1210 for the next episode, Joe. Take your choice. We go Bobby Flay or we go Joe Burrow. So take your choice. We'll work on getting those guys
I was gonna
booked
say
up.
we got to get Joe Burrow on because he's dating Jessica Alba, right? Now you
Really?
know anything about
No,
that,
I don't know
Noah?
anything
no, come
about that,
on.
Joe.
Come on. No, don't do it. Don't spread the lies.
Joe's
So
all
you're
into
gonna have
that
to.
stuff. All right.
I'm
Well,
very into
Noah,
that.
this has been great. We appreciate it. Last question here. I asked you last time, but we've had some time since. But I'm right moment. So for you, what is that recently as far as you wanted to pursue something? You asked somebody for advice. That person said, Noah, bad idea. Don't do it. Not going to work out. You said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and try it anyway. And in the end, you will see why it is that I'm right about this. And I can tell you, I told you so.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that I was told ahead of time not to. I was told on the back end that people were worried, but this was a spur of the moment thing of we had the NBA All-Star game and Barack Obama was sitting courtside, and he caught the ball as it was rolling to him, and I did an impression of him on the air. And there were people that said they were they were worried how it was going to be taken, but Barack's official Instagram account posted the clip of me doing the impression and thought it was great. So I will take the win. I don't know if he actually liked it or not, but I will certainly take the win that it worked out in a positive way.
Very nicely said, Noah. Thank you so much. Super cool. Definitely got to do Knicks Nets at some point. Hopefully the Knicks continue to be good here. Hopefully giving the city some chance of a championship, because the Nets are probably going to be rebuilding a little bit here in the upcoming
A
future.
lot of
But we
draft picks, though, Joe. The
a
future's
lot of
bright
draft
for the
picks. Listen, I
Nets.
was going to say they could very easily, in a matter of 2.5 to 3 years, do what the Oklahoma City Thunder did, which a lot of people did not necessarily expect a couple of years ago, but they loaded up. They did it the right way. I do think that the Nets do have some building blocks and the ingredients there. They have not been the same since they fired Kenny Atkinson, though. So I don't know if you necessarily agree with that, but I think he was the right coach at the right time for that team, and they parted ways, and he had success elsewhere. But Noah, we appreciate you. Definitely got to meet in person, hopefully one day soon. Obviously, you're back in New York, so maybe sometime over the summer when you do have some free time. But appreciate you. Love your work. Love supporting you. You did this the right way. All your success is hard earned and well deserved. And you know how this works here. We always give our guests the last word. So if there's anything else you would personally like to add on top of everything that you haven't talked about in the first two shows, by all means, go ahead. And where can we find you?
First of all, appreciate it, guys. Appreciate you for having me back. It's an honor to be a two-timer now. That's a huge deal. So I take that for what it is. You can find me on social media at NoEagle15. I won't be posting a whole lot, but if you follow along, we have some fun Instagram stories every now and then. There was a fun piece of the Brooklyn Nets doing a social video with me about waiting to speak before I heard the GOAT broadcaster. So that was pretty fun. Check that out. We'll have a Nets rewind stuff, which we're looking forward to that as well. But go Nets, go Cuse, go Harley Davidson. I don't know.
Makes sense. All right. Well, no, this has been fantastic. We thank you for your time. Safe travels, of course. And that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right for our very special now two-time guest, Noah Eagle. My co-host, Joe Calabrese. I'm Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.